Hello, Botu. This is Alan. Welcome to my channel. I have a small book haul here, but long introductions to the books. So the first one probably doesn't need a long introduction, and and I found it in this magazine, Russian Life. They had a series of ads promoting different books. And oh, by the way, it was 58 degrees this morning. So it's kind of surprising for September here in Dallas. And the high is going to be 71. So it's a lot of good uh, coming down from the upper 90s. So this was Moscow and the Muscovites. This was the ad in Russian Life. So I went ahead and ordered that one. And here's the book right here. It actually has a Vladimir Gilrorsky. I'll add this to my Russian collection. This was originally published in 1926, and this is the English edition, was copyrighted in 2013. It's since added some to this introduction. This was translated, by the way, by Brendan Karanen. And includes a map in here of Russia that was from 1893. Map of Moscow. These little dots, these little sections here are where the author visited and put into the into the book. And it's just a daily life of Moscow from 1896 until 1860s to the mid-1930s. Self-described chronicles, a spectacular verbal pastiche, conversation from gutter gibberish to the drawing room oratory, from illiterates to aristocrats, from boilerplate to Tolstoy, poetry from the earthy humor to Pushkin. And this has a lot of older photographs that have been reproduced. This is Red Square of the 1900s. And it was a execution and proclamation spot and circular object in front of Basels Cathedral to the left. Basels Cathedral's right here, and the circle part is right there. So it has a lot of reproductions of photographs. And here's a flood in the capital of Moscow. There's a lot of plums. So it's a lot of want to know more about the city at that time and people at that time. So I'm going to look forward to reading this and adding it to my Russian collection. The next book is will take a little bit longer to because I have two other books that came with this one book. Not came, but I've read about either books and this book. And this book was actually Jason of Byways in Bookland had tagged me on Instagram post, and I looked at that post and thought, oh yeah, and he did this book, and this is The Return of Holy Russia, Apocalyptic History, Mystical Awakening, and the Struggle for the Soul of the World. This is by Gary Lockman, and this is published, it actually came out this year, and it's Inner Traditions of Rochester, Vermont. Published it. Oh, little catalog. I can send that off and get a catalog. But let me read you the inside here. At the turn of the 20th century, a period known as the Silver Age, age, Russia was undergoing a powerful spiritual and cultural rebirth. It was a time of magic and mysticism that saw a virtual resurgence of interest in the occult as creative intensity not seen in the West since the Renaissance. This was the time of God seekers, pilgrims of the soul, and explorers of the spirit who sought the salvation of the world through art and ideas. These sagas and their visions of Holy Russia were returning to provenance now through Russian President Vladimir Putin, who, inspired by their ideas, envisions a new Eurasian civilization with Russia as its leaders. Learn Russia's long history of mysticism and apocalyptic thought, Gary Lockman examined Russia's unique position between East and West and its potential role in the history and the future of the world. Lockman discusses Russia's original Slavic paganism, its eager adoption of mystical and apocalyptic Eastern Orthodox Christianity. He explores the Silver Age as a cult revival with a look at Rasputin's prophecies. Excuse me. Excuse me. Blavatsky's Theosophy, Rorik's Red Slumblia, and philosophies of Berdyaev and Solovov. He looks at Russian Rosicrucianism, the Illuminati scare, Russian Freemasonry, and the rise of other secret societies in Russia. So, yeah, Jason Byway's booklet, I might be interested in this one also because of the Rosicrucian and the other Freemasonry in Russia, because he knows a lot about those too. But the two that he mentioned that I just read, the two authors here are, let me see if I can find their names again. Up. Oh, that's weird. Oh, the philosophies of Berdyaev and Solovov. Those two names are in this book, in which, of course, as he just mentioned it, because in 2014, at the annual meeting in Russia since 2001, the communist country's dominant political party, along with the usual rhetoric of party politics, Russian President Vladimir Putin passed on to his regional governor some suggested reading. Putin likes to come across as a bookish, and he has not been shy to talk about his favorite writers. And one of his favorite writers is Dostoevsky. But the reading list Putin passed on to his governors did not suggest a brush up or Turgevna, and encouraged them to go through Gogol. The books Putin asked his governors to read were works of philosophy. They were books of ideas about Russia. Excuse me. The three thinkers Putin suggested his governors get to know were Vladimir Solovyov, a friend of the novelist Dostoevsky, and according to the late American-Russian scholar James Gallon, the greatest and most influential of Russia's philosophical thinkers. And this author, Gary Lockman, lists the books Solovov, The Justification of the Good. Well, guess what I did? I went and bought Solovov, The Justification of the Good. And this is a Erdman's Rest. Erdman out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. and they print a lot of. It was first printed in 1897 in Russian, and the English edition was printed in 1918, and this edition was printed in 2005. This was translated by Natalie Dunnington. Vladimir Sololov, his father was an author who had produced a 23-volume set on the history of Russia and has not been translated into English. What's wrong with these people? His brother was a poet, and this gentleman's sister was a poet, and his brother was a historical novelist. So he had a lot of things in it. This book, uh, wrote down some things. It's a powerful and profound work on moral philosophy. He and maybe in this book may be considered anthropological, tracking human moral impulses, and it ain't feelings. In the book, what I write, it was aimed at the shame, flirting, and broad range, deep moral anthropology, history, and morality, and a satire of ethical duties of the church, state, and economy. And let me read it better over here, excuse me. After passing through theism, pantheism, sundry atheistic visions of life, Vladimir Solyov emerged as a Christian thinker, an irrepressible conviction to become genius. The justification of good, one of Solyov's last and most mature works, presents a profound argument for human morality based on the world's longing for and participating in God's goodness. In the first part of the book, Solyov explores humanity's inner virtue and the full reality in Christ, weaving his moral philosophy with threads drawn from Orthodox theology. In the second part, Solyov discusses the practical implication of Christian goodness for such areas as naturalism, war, economics, legal justice, and family. So this is one of the books that Putin recommended to his governors to read. The next one that Putin asked his governors to read, as soon as I find the page here in this book, was that other gentleman by the name of Berdiev. See if I can find the page again. Oh, here we are. How funny. The next one, and I actually went down, got the wrong book, but excuse me, let me get this book. Yeah, this is Nicholas Berdiev. This is his book, The Destiny of Man. But this is not the book that Putin recommended to the governors to read. He actually recommended The Philosophy of Inequality, which I ordered, and it should be coming. Let me read you something about this book. It is actually from St. Martin's Cimatron Press. This was first edition 1955, enlarged edition 2009, Florida Bibliography by Boris Yankum, and 2008. And probably printed this earlier, published this earlier because Berdiev was born in 1874 and died in 1948. So Gogol had a quote here. said that it is sad not to see any good in goodness. And this book is, I'll read you down here. The Russian philosopher Nikolai Berdyaev was one of the great religious thinkers of the 20th century. His philosophy goes beyond mere thinking, mere rational conceptualization. He tries to attain authentic life itself, profound layers of existence that are in contact with God's world. Berdyaev direct all his efforts, the philosophical as well as his own personal and public life, as replacing the kingdom of this world with the kingdom of God. According to him, we can all attempt to do this by tapping the divine creative powers which constitute our true nature. Our mission is to be collaborators with God in His continuing creation of the world. This is what Berdyaev said about himself. Man's personality, freedom, creativeness, the eschatological messianic resolution of dualism of the two worlds. These are my basic themes. So you gotta get it, even though this is not the book that Putin recommended, you get a sense where the author is coming from. The third book that Putin recommended was a gentleman by the name of Ilyan, Ilyan, called Our Task. And that was from, let me see here, Ivan Ilyan, a more political thinker than either Berdyaev or Solovyov, and whose ideas were some kind of Russian fascism. And there's another, I just saw another thing in here. There's a couple other books that this author points out. So yeah, this will be very interesting writing. Probably get some more ideas for some more books to read from this book. The Return of Holy Russia. Apocalyptic History, Mystical Awakening, Struggle for the Soul of the World by Gary Lockman. And I like this cover. The next book needs another explanation. And that is because I was watching a documentary on YouTube about Ken Philby. And Ken Philby, if a lot of people don't know, worked for the British, His Majesty's Secret Intelligence Service at the beginning of World War II. He rose rapidly in the ranks to become the chief liaison officer with the CIA in Washington after the war. The exposure of other members of the group of British double agents known as the Cambridge Five led to the revelation that Philby had been spying for the Soviet Union years before he joined the British intelligence service. Excuse me. He fled to Moscow, one jump ahead of British agents who had come to arrest him. Spent the last 25 years of his life in Russia. And in Russia, they showed him in his apartment with his third wife and Russian wife. And there was a whole shelf of P.G. Wodehouse books, the Penguin type. But in the documentary, they have, of course, they have people they interview, and they have books on the shelves. Although they'll show a book, and you go, "Oh, I want to get that one." Well, the book I wanted to get, I thought of. This one has to do with the spies and with the British intelligence service, MI5 and MI6, and the one that came out in 1986 was called Spycatcher, and it has to do with Tom Wright, who resigned as the director of MI6. I think that I got his name right. Yeah, right. And MI5, and he wanted to publish a book. And in the book, he describes about how the British Secret Service was going to assassinate Nasser during the uh, Gamal Nasser during the 70s, who was the president of Egypt at that time. And so one of the gentlemen that they interviewed in the video was a gentleman by the name of Chapman Pincer, who lived to be 100 years old. And he had, was a journalist in England and Britain, and he wrote several books. One is called The Traitor's Anatomy of Treason. Another one's called Too Secret, Too Long. Another one's called The Secret Offensive. And these are all books dealing with the spy game. And the book that he wrote that I bought, actually, and it's called The Spycatcher Affair. It doesn't have a dust jacket, so it's called The Spycatcher Affair, and it has to do with, it's better on here, and it has to do with the revelation in 1985 with Peter Wright, who came out, tried to publish this book called The Spycatcher, and was banned in the UK because of the secrets that he was going to put into the book that they didn't want, MI5 and MI6 didn't want to be acknowledged. And this is sort of like today when Edward Snowden came out to reveal what was going on with the secret intelligence here in the United States. Yeah, and this is the first edition. It was published by St. Martin's Press, and yeah, this would be interesting to read about what is going on because it's sort of like a first-hand account. And I'll read you just a preface here. This book will, I believe, provide historical testimony how people of the highest integrity, honestly trying to do their best for the country, can be ensnared by the cult of secrecy into situations that make them look inept, unprofessional, conspiratorial, deceitful, and untruthful. It offers fine, focused observation of the difficulties in knowing where the truth lies in secret affairs. It should serve to dispel some of the bewilderment of those who have followed the events but found them too complicated for easy understanding. Historians have a phrase, the fog of war, to explain apparent blunders by military commanders that are really due to confusion and chaos, inevitably in any widespread conflict. The Wright affair suggests that the fog of secrecy may be equally descriptive of apparent follies in the security and intelligence world, especially when deception operations are involved. This account should help to undermine the fetish of secrecy in administration and government by exposing the danger it poses for those who have been trained to set such store by it. So that's the Spycatcher Affair by Graham Pinker. Like I said, he has written several other books about the spy trade, MI5, MI6. He's also written books about fishing. So he had other hobbies to do. So thank you very much for watching. Sorry this went on so long, but of course it had a lot of explanations, and take care, everybody.